Craig Bork started his criminal ways back in Minnesota, where he would murder 4 people, including 2 of his children. This mass murder crime is one of the worst in the history of Minnesota. See, on that day, back in 1982, he would murder his girlfriend, Ramona Yarkue, another woman, Gwendolyn Johnson, and his 2 sons, Joseph and Jason, ages 3 and 1. Minnesota police would enter his home to conduct a wellness check and would find all 4 victims dead. Each had been strangled and stuffed under beds. For that crime, Craig Bork would receive multiple life sentences. However, he was not done with his murderous ways. Craig Bork would be sentenced to a maximum security prison in Minnesota called Stillwater, where a few years later would beat to death a fellow prisoner and would receive yet another life sentence. Now the Minnesota Department of Corrections did not want to deal with Craig Bork any longer, so they made him transfer to the Oregon Department of Corrections. Craig Bork would keep his head down for a number of years until 2013, where he would strangle to death his cellmate at the Oregon State Penitentiary. Now, Oregon does have the death penalty. However, a judge ordered the Minnesota Department of Corrections to get Craig Bork out of his state, which changed the charges against him, rendering him ineligible for the death penalty. Craig Bork would plead no contest to his 6th murder and would receive yet another life sentence. After his latest murder conviction, this time for strangling his cellmate in Oregon, a Minnesota man who in the 1980s said God and the devil beckoned him to kill 2 women and his children could be coming home. In handing down Craig Bork's 5th life sentence for committing his 6th murder, a judge has asked the Minnesota Department of Corrections to move the 60-year-old prisoner out of Oregon, where Bork is serving time through an interstate compact that allows correctional systems to trade problem inmates. That means Bork has escaped Oregon's death penalty yet again. "I think it's disgusting," said Matt Kemp, Deputy District Attorney. "The death penalty is supposed to be for the worst of the worst, and Craig Bork is absolutely that. This is a man who's been convicted of killing men, women, and children, plural, each. Frankly, he should be the poster child for why we have the death penalty." 38 years ago, Bork, then known as Craig Jackson, committed a spree of 4 murders that Minneapolis police called the city's worst of the 20th century. He achieved new notoriety years later as a problem inmate, after he would go on to beat the death of his cellmate in Stillwater Prison. In 2013, after Minnesota sent him into Oregon State Penitentiary, Bork killed his cellmate, a convicted murderer named Joe Atkins. After Bork's conviction for the latter killing, Judge Tracy Prale, an Oregon corrections official, agreed that Bork would stay in Oregon through April, while Minnesota finds new housing for him. According to court documents, prison administrators here have not yet decided whether to place Bork in Minnesota or send him to another state, said Department of Corrections spokesman Nicholas Kimball. Bork ranks among a tier of violent inmates who pose a dilemma for prisons. He is serving at minimum a 170-year prison sentence, with 2 more murder convictions under his belt. His outlook has hardly changed from when a Hennepin County judge first sentenced him to never be permitted to walk the streets of any community for the remainder of his life. In 2017, Bork made a phone call to the Star Tribune. He called from solitary confinement in Oregon and spoke at length about his life and murders. Bork claimed that killing Atkins was an act of self-defense. "It's an old penitentiary at the end of the tier. It's dark, we're alone, 2 convicted murderers in the cell in the middle of the night. There's no help, you know." Bork doesn't deny the 6 killings of which he's been convicted over the years. He is adamant, however, that those acts do not alone define him, that he feels deep remorse and wants to be viewed with more nuisance than simply a monster. He said, quote, "I actually am a human being. I actually have a conscience," end quote. Bork grew up in Des Moines with an abusive father who ranted about his hatred for women and blacks and taught his son to tell time by beating him when he got it wrong. He lived mostly with his mother, a cocktail waitress named Shirley Fees, in small apartments crowded by cousins and grandparents. As a kid, Bork angrily stamped out all the flowers in his yard. Once, he tied two cats together by the tails and watched them tear each other apart. When he was 18, Bork got his underage girlfriend, Terry, pregnant and then moved to Minneapolis. Bork proudly showed off his first son, Joy, saying, quote, to the people, "I ought to charge you $1 to see this baby of mine." But trouble always followed him. Drugs was always there to make it through the day. He carried a gun and once ransacked one of his mom's friend's mobile homes. A month after Joy's birth, he spent 2 weeks in jail. After their second son, Jason, was born, Bork and Terry broke up. Bork started dating a waitress at Delano's Pizzeria, Ramona Urquhart. It was a brutal relationship, and Urquhart left several times when she got sick of the beatings. One day, in February 1982, Bork decided to will his soul to the devil in exchange for money, good physique, women, and a good family. A couple of weeks later, Bork dropped off his sons with a babysitter and spent the day popping speed, drinking whiskey and beer, smoking marijuana, then snorting PCP and amphetamines. He went downtown Minneapolis and drank on Hennepin Ave, where he met Gwendolyn Johnson, a 20-year-old woman with a history of prostitution arrests. He brought her back to his house and strangled her during sex, then hid her body under the bed. The babysitter dropped off Jason and Joy, ages 1 and 3, and Bork choked them to death too. Then he waited for Yarku to come home from her shift and strangled her. By the time police found the bodies 3 days later, Bork was gone. Detectives didn't know whether he was hiding or dead. Police tried to find Terry for questioning, but she was missing too. In April, Bork turned himself in to the brother of a Minneapolis homicide detective in a pancake house in Kansas. A month later, a father and son foraging for mushrooms in rural Iowa found Terry's remains. Bork was charged with her murder, but it never went to trial. He maintains he did not kill Terry. Looking back on his first murders, Craig Bork said he was locked into a drug-induced psychosis, disconnected from reality, and he believed that with every fiber of his being. He also said he's been sober now for 20 years and feels remorse deeper than he can ever express. He said, quote, "I literally totally destroyed myself," he said, end quote. Then starts up again by saying, "Who could ever punish me more than my own mind would punish me for what I've done? The law couldn't come close to what I've done to myself mentally." When he first entered prison, Craig Bork fought other inmates. Prison staff caught him in several escape plots and transferred him back and forth from different prisons to foil his plans. Bork boasted that he was untouchable. He was already serving 3 life sentences, and Minnesota didn't have the death penalty. One staffer recorded Bork saying he had nothing to lose by killing any inmate. One summer day in 1996, Bork wrote an internal communique to then Stillwater prison warden David Chris, demanding he be moved back to Oak Park Heights prison. If Chris didn't comply, Bork threatened to kill again. "I'm very homicidal," he wrote. "Trust me, if I made a move, I'd complete it. I'm very close to committing mass murder in Stillwater. Trust me, minimum of 3 bodies, I'd go for 10 and come real close." On Thanksgiving Day, 1997, a correctional officer found Bork in the prison kitchen mopping up a dark red liquid. The officer followed drag marks to a garbage cart, where he found the body of inmate Edwin Curry. When asked about the killing, Craig Bork said the prison was playing a punk game with him, and he gave him a body. This is what prison is. This isn't 3M, and this isn't the neighborhood, and this isn't Powerhorn Park. He went on to say, "It probably wasn't the best choice, but it was the best choice I made." In 2013, Craig Bork was transferred to the Oregon prison. He killed Joe Atkins on August 16, 2013. 2 years later, a grand jury indicted him for the murders of Atkins, Curry, Johnson, Yarkue, and his 2 children. Each one of those carried the death penalty. As he prepared for trial, Bork told the Star Tribune that Atkins tried to kill him in his sleep because Bork had confronted Atkins for hiding a knife and razor blades in their cell, and that he strangled him in self-defense. Greg Bork said he never intends to kill another person. He said he could be released from prison today and never harm another soul. But if faced with the same threat in prison, he said, he wouldn't hesitate to act. If some dude up here threatens my life next week and I think he's serious, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to take care of myself and defend myself. That's how it is. Facing death, Craig Bork said he wanted a botched execution that sent flames shooting from his body. We can all go to hell together, he said. I mean, you want to kill me, then botch the execution. Screw it up. I want it to be horrific. The opportunity for such a spectacle would never come. Last year, as Bork awaited trial, Oregon's governor signed a new death penalty law making Bork ineligible for the punishment. Asked what he thinks should be done with him, Bork struggled to arrive at an answer. What's fair? I don't know, he said. It's a difficult question. It's almost like asking someone, what's the meaning of life?